Are live. Welcome everyone to Shifting Lanes Garage, your weekly car show about a little bit of everything. We've fallen into
Mostly cars.
mostly cars. We do have some interesting car-related topics to discuss today. Mustang's getting new parts. Greg is getting giddy with excitement over the used car market.
Yes.
But it is
Oh,
a
and I have one breaking news story. The 2024 Nissan Z Nismo is more powerful, sharper, and automatic only. So that is something we should talk about. And I will send you the link for that right now because I just saw it. And that's something we should definitely talk about because the hardcore version of it is automatic only, and I'm sure there are going to be some opinions.
we've
I
fallen
have
into
many.
Mostly.
Actually, I have one. I have just one. It is not positive.
But we'll get to that later.
Yes, we will. First and foremost, Greg, how you doing, buddy?
I am good. Thank you for asking. Got my juice, delicious juice from a local juice brewery,
Juicery, as you were.
and a local juicery. That's right. It is sour and filled with berries, and it's delicious. Um, Other than that, good. Life is good. Car is good. Running beautifully on the new tune, and we will have a video out this week on part one of the tune, part two next week, and part three the week after. So all is good and very exciting. How about yourself?
I am doing great-ish. So,
Great-ish.
so to those of you who have been watching or who watch our short form stuff, I made this reel last night,
Oh no.
and the ruins your day.
Ooh, that's a thing. That's a big metal thing.
So yeah, that's a big old nail in the tire of the Mustang, which throws a pretty large wrench into the plan for the track this Friday. I probably won't get new tires in time for it. So it looks like
Yeah.
Greg might be running solo, which is good though. I will be there to support him. You guys, if you're able, Island Dragway in Great Meadows, New Jersey, the only quarter mile drag strip in New Jersey, with ACO shutting down recently. So
Yes.
if you can make it, come on down. We'd love to have you. Probably going back the 18th ish. Hopefully with we'll get to the new stuff for the Mustang shortly here. Just real quick, Brett, Justin, Andrew, Richard, welcome. Thank you for tuning in.
Good evening. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and glad to have you all.
Richard, there's a name I haven't seen, so welcome to your first ever. Hope you stick around. And Justin goes, "You mean Go Fast parts?" Well, I feel like this is actually a halfway decent segue.
Yes. Let's talk your car first because you have news.
Christian asks, "How close are you guys to North Carolina?" We're in New Jersey. We're that far.
Not close.
I did
The answer
used
is
to
not
go
close.
to
We're there in spirit.
I did used to go to North Carolina every summer down in the Outer Banks, but
That's true.
not crazy, not conveniently close, as it were.
Yes.
But so obviously, first things first. There's a nail in my tire, so new tires.
Those look sticky.
Yes, they are R888Rs. The funny thing is if you go into it's not even like under street tire; it's under R compound tires. I'm getting 285 up front and 305s in the rear. I was highly tempted to go with 325s, but that's pushing the limit of the width of my rim, 11 and a half inches. So I figured I'd try these for now. See if I can get a season out of them. And the other thing, Justin runs the same tire on the Grand National. No
It's a great
complaints.
tire, honestly.
I mean, so
if you don't need water channeling, it's a wonderful tire.
you and your details. Look, here's the bottom line. You're gonna have almost. What do you have? 245s on yours.
Yeah, I have 245s.
So, some quick math. You have 980 millimeters worth of tire
Contact patch.
contact patch for
Right.
me. So I will have roughly a third of that. So I need to make it up with the compound. So to
Right.
speak. But
Right.
as are most things with my car, there are basically two people I consult in. Is Jeff over at Blue Sky, who built the Mustang, and that is
Yep.
my buddy Dan, who, if you were here a few weeks ago, Dan is the owner of the Rat Rod Supra that Cletus was thinking about buying. So, his nice street Supra that, has 1,500 or 1,600 horsepower. And I asked him what tire I should get. And he sends me a link, and it's a drag radial. I'm like, ugh. I'm like, this is still my daily. He's like, oh, get the R888Rs. And Jeff can,
Yeah.
and Jeff can,
Yeah, he's like, get some bead lockers and throw some Mickey Thompsons on it and be like, bro, that's not going to work for runs to Lowe's in the winter, so stop it.
well, to be fair, neither are these.
Well, correct, but these you could at least idle down the road on in the winter. Mickey Thompsons, I feel like, would just be trying to like drive on ice.
Well, yes. So, but the funny thing is, I see a lot of radial setups on like Facebook Marketplace for like a quarter of the price, and I'm like, I was so tempted until I got the nail in the tire, and I'm like, well, fuck, this is what I have to get now. Christian goes, North Carolina is beautiful. Yes, it is. Big fan.
Yeah,
Justin
very much.
goes, obviously, one of the people was not me. It's nothing personal. Just, I trust in the guy who built the car and one of my buddies who does professional drag racing, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Hey, Justin does professional Grand Nationaling.
I mean, best in show. Let me put it this way: if I want advice on like detailing products and how to make another S550 Mustang owner bitter, you're the first guy I call.
That's right. But also, Christian, welcome back to the stream, man. I haven't seen you in a while. Very excited to have you back. And it's beautiful. I was talking about the tire. It is beautiful. Damn right.
Gorgeous.
It's a beautiful tire. I agree.
Hopefully, I get them somewhere between Thursday and Saturday. So like I said, I don't know if I'm going to have them in time for the track. That being said, I've also laxed and I need to, let's see here. I need to get on it and order one of these because my car is technically not allowed to go down the strip at the moment without...
That's right. You do need a fire jacket.
So I might just sit this one out, film for Greg, be his pit crew, be his emotional support animal. As best as
I expect a dog leash and harness.
Not happening. As much as a wise ass like me can be. Antoine, what's going on, boss? Welcome back. Good news for Andrew. He was in a little fender bender, but it looks like his insurance company is going to cover it. Always a good thing when you don't have to fork over money for damage to your car.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yes, and we have a bunch of people that are on stream or at least watching that usually aren't watching. We have like at least between 15 to 20 people. So if you guys are watching, please chime into comments and say hello. That's the whole reason we do this. It's to converse with you guys. So thank you so much for watching. So let's talk about your car, Chad, the Mustang. So we know we're doing the tires, obviously, because you got a nail in it. What is the other side of things that you need to do to your car? If you're watching, don't know. Chad basically had his car built by our buddies Jeff and Jesse over at Blue Sky Performance and Restoration. Jeff is the mechanic over there, and Jesse is sort of the aesthetics guy. He does the paint and whatever, but they're a team. They own the business together. And Chad has a 2015 S550 Mustang. For those, again, that are new to this and are not familiar with it, that he just had built by Jeff over there to 700 plus wheel horsepower. So Mustang GTs on the whole are pretty cool cars. They're quick. When you do a little bolt-on stuff, they're quicker. But what Chad did was slap a supercharger the size of our heads on it, and now it's a ridiculous car. So, with that said, with the tire and the nail, what is the next sort of thing that you are looking at for the Mustang that you told me earlier?
Okay, so first of all, Justin, thank you so much for the 200 stars. Love you, brother. I appreciate the support.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate the support as always.
So, to those of you who are new, the thing with the My Mustang was a 2015 GT PP2, which basically means it has the performance pack on it, and it, which means the big brakes, chassis reinforcement, better cooling, and 373 gears. The stock comes with 355s, which is great NA. The problem I was running into is that those things, basically, I cannot accelerate more than quarter throttle in first gear. Second gear, pretty much the same story. Without it just bang, wanting to just rev. So, like, I have too short of a gear, and what I should have done was got a new ratio in the back when everything was apart. Something Jeff reminded me when we were talking about this earlier. So again, talk to Jeff, talk to my buddy who's in the drag racing scene, and the next physical mod for the Mustang will be a new rear gear. I was between 355s and 331s. Basically, we are right on the cusp of the gear ratios. 800 wheel horsepower is roughly where we want to go to the 331. So we're at the very top end of this, which is a 355 gear. So what this will do is it'll make my gearing longer. So it won't be putting all the power down immediately. It'll be kind of more of a over a longer period, which gives the tires, which are better, which should grip more to begin with, gives them more of time as opposed to just the sudden burst of torque. So this I will be ordering soon, and it'll be going on the car either next month or in September, depending on when I can get it up to Blue Sky. It would have been significantly less expensive for if I had just had the foresight and done this when everything was apart. But the long and short of it is that I'm looking to get more rear traction, and ultimately coilovers is something we've discussed and something I want to put on it. However, this is going to accentuate that, right? Like we were talking about, I want to get a little more squat in the rear end, but I don't want to put a set of drag springs on it and be driving everywhere with the back end bouncing around. You know what I mean? So this is all in a attempt.
That was going to be my question, is like, why are you doing this? And basically the whole thing is for grip.
100% grip. It's 100%. The thing of it is that let me put it to you this way. It was 705 horsepower at the rear tire on the, we'll call it street tune. You're going to knock the tires off it if you're not careful regardless, right? Like, unless you're running like a slick, you're going to knock the tires off it. But I was knocking the tires off it without even getting close to full throttle. So even though a drag strip is prepped and I can play around with air pressures and things of that nature, Island isn't like, Bradenton, where like Cletus and them go, where they legitimately give it the best prep so Cletus can test on good prep, right?
Right.
So traction was always going to be an issue, and to such an extent that I wouldn't be at all surprised if Greg was faster down the quarter mile as the Mustang currently sits on the tire it currently has. just because I would have been pedal festing the whole way down. Now, once I got grip at the top end of third gear and into fourth, I'd pull on him like he was tied to a stump. But would I be able to make up for, Greg Scar 60 is pretty hard for a freaking family wagon.
Yeah, I mean, I think any car in the 12s is quick. I feel like my car can get into the 12s now, but we'll have to see. It really depends. When I went to the dyno, last week, there was so much heat soak in the engine from the hour-long drive, as well as doing the first run, that I was actually making less power than I did before I had the downpipe and tune. So that tells me one of two things. One, the heat soak in this car is bananas, and two, I need an intercooler post haste. So that's probably going to be. It depends on how I do it the strip, quite frankly, because I really want to get the car into the 12s, because the whole point of doing this 3-part series of tuning it, going to the dyno, and going to the quarter mile is to be able to finally say that I have a Volvo faster than an E46 M3. And the fastest time I could find online was 13.1 seconds from Car and Driver. Now, I don't know if that's the 5 to 60 rollout, but that wasn't in the article or anything. It basically just said 13.1. Most people that I've seen outside of that testing has been 13.2 as the fastest. So I'm at 13.38. If I can do that, if I can do 13.099, I will be happy. I'd love to get it into the 12s, but I would just be able to say that I'm faster than a stock E46 M3 in a straight line. That's my ultimate goal. So after that, I'm probably going to stop with the power mods and start focusing on aesthetics and handling.
And nitrous?
Because no, meth. Let's get some meth in there first. Methanol injection.
Cool to charge.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. So meth kit and an intercooler would go a long way for that. But there's a lot to do to this car to make it look a lot cooler and handle a lot better. There's upgraded sway bars. There's strut tower bracing. There's rolling of fenders. There's widening of the track. Doing that kind of stuff. There's also some more carbon fiber bits I got to put on. So there's a lot to do otherwise other than power mods. And since this is my daily, I'm not trying to go completely bananas, because if I can't have this car, operational, then I can't bring my kids to camp and school. So
right.
That's a big deal for me. But
yes, counterpoint.
Yes.
Counterpoint. You are taxing the ever-living crap out of your turbo, which is generating a crap ton of heat.
Oh, yeah.
Bigger back housing will create less heat and make your car run better.
Yeah, but the unless I go upgraded turbo, like a fully upgraded turbo, then there's no sense in doing that, because the whole thing's maxed from factory. When I did a log with a pull, the duty cycle in the turbo was at max capacity at 4,500 RPM. The other side of that is the Hilton tune I had was just bad. It was confirmed that it was running off the wastegate only, which is why I was hitting that power plateau. So
we just replace your wastegate springs.
What's that?
So we just replace the springs in the wastegate.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it wasn't that. It was just the tune. The tune was not good. Like, the stock, it's fine, and on this new tune, it's fine. So it was just the tune itself. So either way, as long as I can get past the E46 M3, I'm happy. If it's into the 12s, I'm even happier. I think it could run a 12.9X. So we'll see what happens. I'm interested to see what I can run. I just have to manage the heat. That's the biggest thing. So engine open every time, and that's going to be a big thing. And to answer Doug's question on that point, I do still have the cover on the bottom of my engine bay. What do you mean the bottom of my engine bay? Like under the engine? There's definitely something there, but I also have the fire blanket on the hood, on the underside of the hood. I could probably remove that. That'll probably help with the heat reduction, I would imagine, because that's just a big piece of cloth that just traps heat. So maybe the catch tray. Yeah, maybe the put underneath it a little bit as well. The only thing I'm concerned about is that front splitter that I put on. according to Volvo and Polestar, that front splitter, along with the side skirts, increases the handling drag by 30%. So I'm not super confident that it's gonna go into the 12s. I think I've knocked a couple tenths off, sure, but I don't know if I'm gonna get it into the 12s.
I mean, your car wasn't top ending anyway, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Correct.
I can't see something like that adding that much. Um,
I don't think it will, but we'll have to see. I mean, it is a big, and it's not a huge splitter, and the car is not that low to the ground. So, like, we'll have to see. The car's not lowered or anything. We'll have to figure it out. But either way, I'm excited to see what it does, and we'll have to figure it out. But to your point, you got once you get the new gear and the new tires, I don't stand a chance. I'll get you to 60 foot every single time, and I'll get you to the halfway point probably every single time. But after that, it's just game over.
right. As soon as traction happens in the Mustang, it's just a question of how much track is left.
Right, exactly.
Because I mean, we were talking about this the other day. Is that one tire on my Mustang has to deal with all of the Polestar's power that it's spreading over 4 wheels.
Yes.
Yeah. That, because like you figure like a 705, half of that is 350. That's pretty much what you're putting to the tire. Almost, maybe more, possibly less.
Yeah.
Maybe 400. Maybe Greg actually did put the big turbo in it. Stay tuned to this channel for more.
No, I did not. Can confirm.
Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Excellent.
Steve, what's going on? Cachet. Doug goes, I removed the bottom plastic cover on the hood cowl gasket, but mine isn't a daily anymore, so I don't care about rain. Fair enough. Plus, the underside of the hood looks sweet. The blanket removed. It's got a cool hexagon thing going on.
Yeah, it's interesting. The underside of the Polestar hood looks really cool with the blanket removed. So, but it has like this cool like diamondy hexagon pattern kind of thing. It's very, very sweet. So either way, I'll probably remove that just because it's kind of
weight
pointless.
Savings.
That's right. I'll save 2 pounds.
It's a heavy ass cover.
I mean, it's a Volvo cover, so it's probably more like 5 pounds.
It's made out of wrought iron.
Exactly. It's made out of Swedish brawn.
Hefty.
Durability. Whippy. So that's what's up with our cars.
One thing I didn't want to point out, guys, if you are a supporter, I just posted a couple pictures in the supporter group. Lethal Performance, the place I buy parts from, does things a little bit differently. Their confirmation stuff is hysterical. So I don't know if you can see it here, but this was hey, we got your order. Today started like a normal day here at Lethal Performance until Cougs came running in and said it finally happened. We thought maybe she had a little too much coffee this morning, but then she said we got an order from Chad in Hackettstown. Immediately, Blake started blasting Pour Some Sugar on me. I think he has some sort of fetish. Jared jumped up on his desk and started playing air guitar. Matt threw confetti, which got in Chris's eye, but the doctor said he'll be able to see again soon. While Smales cleans up the mess, we've got the whole team preparing your order for shipment. Once it ships, we'll email you a tracking number so you can get excited. If you have any questions, please reply to this email or reach out to support@lethal.
I also like that it just says thank you and it just has a U up top.
They definitely do.
Just a fucking sheet.
And then when it actually did ship, hey, we got some stellar news from you. Your Lethal Performance order has shipped. Warehouse staff carefully packed it while wearing white gloves, of course, and brought it to the Mustang King for his blessing before gently handing it over to our favorite delivery drivers. John, if you're reading this, we love you. So.
Like that makes me want to just get a vehicle to buy parts from them. Like that's just good customer service, and it's not even really customer service at that point. It's more of just like, I don't know. If I owned a parts company, that's the shit I'd do.
Yeah, it's that little type of stuff, in addition to them having great prices, great customer service, a great return policy, a great rewards program, which has gone a long way for me. $29,100.
How many?
20. Well,
How many rewards? Actually, how many rewards do you have? That's my question.
what the hell was it? Basically, I ended up getting the pump gear, the catch can, the crank sprocket, and about a quarter of the axles as part of my rewards with them.
Damn. Also, I'll give you a crank sprocket.
Hey, you know my address.
I do.
Um,
I'll be right over after the stream.
Justin just goes, someone in public relation needs a raise. Anthony, welcome to the stream.
Welcome to the stream. Yo hoes, yo ho, what up? What up, gangsta?
So yeah, so like they are. Sorry, just cleaning up a little bit. So anyway, that's the Mustang. That's Greg's car. Like I said, we're going to be going to the track quite a bit throughout the course of the summer and into the fall. I'm hoping to get there quite a bit in the fall just because of cooler temps.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, actually. I want to run my car as is in the summer, like obviously this Friday, and we're going to go. And if it rains out for some reason, we'll do the 18th. But, I really want to go in the fall too, and I want to do the dyno again in the fall, because when I did the dyno, the stock one I did was in the fall. It was in, I think, October or November. So it's optimal boost weather at that point. And since Chad is now boosted, he also wants to operate in optimal boost weather to keep things nice and cool and lovely.
So is optimal horsepower.
I think for me, I want to go back to the dyno in the fall and do another quarter mile in the fall just to see the difference. I think that'd be a really cool just information thing for the community, for both of our communities.
Right.
I think really cool.
I gotta find it, but there's a site that will actually track the DA.
Yes.
At a location. They have
density altitude, by the way, for those that don't know what DA is.
Density altitude is a way of quantifying things like temperature, humidity, elevation, and combining it into one metric, and that's basically elevation. So that's effectively how much horsepower your car could make, right? Like if you have like a 6,000 DA, that's like you're over a mile above sea level, very thin air,
right?
But like hot, humid air has a negative effect on horsepower as well. So it'll be very interesting as we do more science.
Science.
Maybe I'll get my fire jacket to look like a white lab coat.
That would be fantastic.
So, Doug hit 7,000 posts on Sweet Speed today. Way too much time on the forums.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, Gregson, not to get off topic, or maybe to get on topic, the link you sent me about the Z does not work.
What? All right, hang on. Hold up. Oh, whoa. It's also gone for me too. Look at that. Oh, I wonder if they posted it too early.
Well, I've seen the automatic thing. I hadn't seen the power bump, but I saw that it's going to be actually.
Well, no, I wonder if that was what I'm saying is I wonder if that's embargoed. I know that it was rumored, but I guess we can talk about it because they posted it. So no one else has it. I'm looking at my Feedly feed for cars. I don't see anything about it. So according to Autoblog and a post that they have now deleted, Apparently, the Nissan Nismo is going to be faster, more track focused, and have an automatic only.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
So,
worried about embargoes, Motor One posted on June 27th that it's only going to come with an automatic. So,
but was that a rumor or was that confirmed?
well, it was a leak, but
Okay. So I guess the leak was basically confirmed to be true by that inadvertent post on Autoblog. But either way, we can talk about that because this is the new Z, which has a lot of hype around it. The new Z was famously introduced with a wonderful 6-speed transmission. And now the hardcore version from factory, or the sportier version of a sports car, is going to have an automatic only.
I don't get that.
Chad, thoughts?
I don't get it at all. I mean, it's not like we're talking about some 600-700 horsepower absolute maniac of a car to where, okay, for the people who are going to be buying this, seeing as how there's no, there's no like, oh, your car makes more than 600 horsepower, new license, so any schmuck with the money can go out and buy it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I really don't understand it. The CD009 transmission has been shown to be able to hold a crap ton of horsepower from factory. There's guys pushing well over 700 horsepower in like 2Js running a CD009. So it's not like that transmission can't handle an extra, what I'm guessing is 25 to 50 horsepower. It's probably not going to be much.
Probably not much at all. My guess is it's another 10.
My guess would be there's some it's some more aggressive tuning, probably a bigger intercooler, and maybe some intake manifold whiz-bangery. But for what this car is, and like, what was the big thing about the Z when it came out? It had a manual, and Toyota at the time was only rumored to be putting a manual in the Supra, right? Like,
Yep.
that got the hype going big time. And then now the Supra has a manual option because people demanded it. And now they're going to go automatic only. I mean, it makes zero sense to me. Because again, we're still living under that magical number that we talk about, which is the 500 horsepower, right? Like that magical number of like what would likely be pretty dang good for a normal, everyday, really, really fun car. And no man, I don't understand why you wouldn't have a manual option. I just don't get it. I wonder if the information was wrong, or if, hey, maybe it got pulled off the site because Nissan was like, yo, dickheads, we're actually going to put a manual in it. I don't know, but it makes no sense whatsoever.
So I'll take the counterpoint to that, and I'll start my counterpoint with if it is going to be automatic only, and we do have confirmation at some point of automatic only, and by automatic we mean paddles and stuff. It's not just going to be a stick shaft in the middle. Like there's going to have
column
it's going to have
shifter
paddles regardless. That column shifter. Oh my god, could you imagine a column shifter Z? That'd be so ridiculous. But either way, I don't like the move. That is my firm opinion. I think if you're gonna have a car that has a manual, that's an entry level sports car, which the Z is by every measure and every metric, then the hot version should have a manual at least as an option for those that want to have a more engaging experience. However, I do get the reason that they went on automatic only. It's only because they want to sell them. Because if you can have a Z with a manual, you're just going to buy the base one, and it's going to be cheaper, and that's where all the enthusiasts are going to go. They're not the enthusiasts that whoa, Inception, what's happening? Oh, there we go. Like, where's the infinity mirror? It's expanding. I do get it because that's what these companies do these days, and that's what we should come to expect at this point. Um, I'm disappointed, and I'm sure we all are that it likely won't come in the manual. I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love for that information to be incorrect, but I do get it because I do understand that these companies are just trying to sell them, and automatics just sell better than manuals in cars like this these days. That's just a fact of life, unfortunately.
Here's where
The cool thing is that the manual Z still exists, and that's great. And they made it with a manual first. That's awesome. And I truly think this is going to be nothing but an appearance package and an engine tune. That's probably going to be it.
their track
The
their
last
track record
the
is
last
to put do more track focus, not maybe a track suspension. But the history with all like the 350 Nismo, the 370 Nismo,
Yeah.
they got better suspension. So I'm guessing that tracks. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a turbocharged car, so to squeeze an extra 20 horsepower out of it isn't difficult.
Oh yeah, it's an easy remap.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
But
Yeah, and Nissan knows how to do that.
but
So,
here's
but the
here's the thing with it.
I don't know. I do get it. Is my whole point of that. I understand why they would go automatic only is because they do want to sell them, and the majority of people are going to want a paddle gearbox as opposed to a manual.
Here's
Even in an enthusiast version of an enthusiast car.
Here's the thing. Sure, automatic. I get the, hey, only way this thing exists is if the douchebags who buy automatics buy it, right? Like, I get it. I get it. Here's the thing. Here's the counter to that. I'm guessing the Nismos aren't going to be built in some special hermetically sealed facility like a GTR is, right? I'm assuming they're going to be a part of the same production line, right? Like there's going to be regular Zs and there's going to be Nismos, and they're going to be in the same facility as they manufacture them. And you know what happens in that same facility? They slap a manual transmission in a normal Z, and it's not like
Yeah.
the engine is changing, so you have to rework the bell housing, all that other sort of stuff. It's not like you even really have to get crazy with like a flywheel and a clutch. Not going to have to happen. It's not. It's you don't have to develop a new transmission. It's all there, and then you're like,
Sure.
nah.
Yeah, that and I like I said, I get why they would do it, and it's purely for sales. I don't understand the decision because you already have a car with a manual. It does not. That doesn't make sense to me.
Right. It's not
The
even
part
like
that
Toyota
makes
and the
sense is for the
Supra,
bean
where
counters. That's it.
It's not even like Toyota and the Supra where they had to make a new trans for it, and they did it anyway, and it's
Right.
sold. Like, hello, look across the street, see what they did, see how it's successful, and see how this won't be. Well, I shouldn't say it won't be.
Well, it's
It'll
funny.
still sell. My guess is that they're not adding a ton more power, and the automatic is going to be quicker in every aspect because they can change engine tuning, they can change transmission tuning. It's just software, and they're going to be able to get quicker 0 to 60 in quarter mile times, all that sort of stuff, just with the
Right.
Elon Musk method, and not actually. But like, here's the bottom line: you don't buy cars like this. I don't know, man. Like, I can't see. I
Well,
can't.
we don't,
Right, I understand that, but it's
but
still.
most people are not us. That's the thing.
Mark goes automatics will always sell better if that's the only option. I mean,
Well, yeah, of course, obviously.
right. I mean, here's the thing, right? A Nismo is going to command a pretty decent price tag for what it is at the end of the day, right? It's a
Yeah.
15-year-old chassis, a 10-year-old engine, a 15-year-old transmit. Like, it's a bunch of old parts, right? And then they're going to sit here and slap a Nismo badge on it and tell you it's going to be $55,000 to $60,000, right? And I'm not saying that's what the price is going to be, but think of it in the
Right.
sense of the normal ones goes for around 40, 45. You're going to be in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000 upcharge on these. That's a lot of money, especially when you start getting into that range. There's a lot of other competition that you're dealing with. And the point of this car is
Yeah.
to be small, or not small, small-ish. I mean, it's similarly sized and weighted to a Mustang, but I digress.
Anthony gives us 100 stars. LS swap it. Thank you for the support, and agree.
It's just to me, like the reasoning behind there is no good reasoning behind only
when
automatic.
the Supra came,
Like when you have everything you need to put a manual in it, and literally it doesn't. You're not re-engineering the car. Like you are not. Like,
right?
There's no re-engineering going on. Like when I say that, I mean the engine's going to be mounted in the same spot. Therefore, the transmission's going to be in the same spot. The bell housing's going to be identical. The drive shafts probably don't need to be changed out. Same with the axles and the rear differential and all of this. Like it is quite literally, your chassis rolls along, it gets an engine, it gets a transmission, and it goes off and gets its other goodies. Well, it could just make a left turn and become a Nismo. It can go straight to stay a regular Z. Like
Right.
and just like it can go right to be an automatic Z, right? A regular automatic Z or something like that, right? Like it doesn't make sense.
The most interesting thing here to me is that when the Supra came out as an automatic only and all the BMW parts, everyone just shit all over it for being an automatic only and having BMW basically as this is basically an M2 coupe with a Toyota badge.
Z4.
Like, I know an M2 is a two-door. Or Z, well, right, yeah, sorry. Yeah, Z4 coupe with a Toyota badge. And, credit where credit's due, that's pretty much what it is. There are a lot of things that Toyota fine-tuned on that car, like suspension. There is a lot of documentation by our buddies over at Albon that said that Toyota basically took the engine and said, you need to upgrade all of these parts to bring it up to a Toyota-worthy build, and then sent it back to them. And then they were like, okay, and they made that. So that's, it's a BMW engine made by Magna Steyr in Austria with Toyota's hands deep into the development of it. With that said, it's still a BMW car, basically, at the end of the day. The whole point of that story is I loved that they made the Supra, even though it was still with both BMW and Toyota. And everyone's saying Toyota could have done it themselves and yada, yada, yada. Economies of scale say that they couldn't have. I had more respect for Nissan basically updating the 370Z, which is what this kind of is. It's a new interior, new body, on the same chassis with an engine from an Infiniti, right? I had more respect for Nissan coming out with this car as a manual than I did for Toyota with the Supra as an automatic. However, my opinion has totally changed. If this turns out to be true, that the Nismo comes out as automatic only, I now respect Toyota more in that respect, in that reference.
100%,
because they said that they would make a manual if there was enough anger behind it, and people bitched and complained constantly, myself included, to say this car should have a manual, and they did it. And it wasn't just taking a Z4 manual transmission and slapping it in the Supra. They literally had to build a transmission out of parts that they conceived from BMW because it's a totally different car as far as like the layout is concerned. So they couldn't just slap it in there. They basically had to create their own manual transmission out of BMW parts to do that. So they did that. And to me, I have more respect for Toyota doing that than Nissan making a manual Z and then making the Nismo version an automatic. That's my whole point.
Right. And I mean, it goes back to the it goes back to the fact that like Toyota got flack and learned from it. Nissan saw all of this happen and it was like, nah, it'll work for us. And that's part of what I don't understand. Just real quick, before I get too far behind on chat, Doug asks,
yes,
would they have to
go ahead, catch up. I'll be right back.
Doug asks, would they have to recertify with the EPA? That's always a cost, and if it counts separate, then it's an additional pain on the fleet average too. Yes. I'm not 100% sure how that actually works. Um, but I have to imagine if you do any sort of tuning or there's any more power to be had, there has to be some kind of recertification within a certain limit, right? Like, I don't know what that is, but I can't imagine if you gain a horsepower, they're going to make you go through the process again. Maybe they will. Governments at a bunch of what's. I don't know, but the point is that like a lot of your modern manual sports cars, six gear is a granny gear, or no, I'm sorry, not a granny gear, but it's overdrive. Um, the distance and the ratios and how linear they are in the Mustang. Even before had the transmission built, was first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Like sixth was significantly taller. The gap between fifth and sixth was significantly taller than any other gap in the gearing. I'm sure that's an element to it. And they can only pick one. But Porsche learned this lesson the hard way. Toyota learned this lesson the hard way. It's just, to me, it's a shame because it's not difficult. Like, and I don't know why they would make any kind of announcement like that without having some sort of explanation behind it. Then again, the article got deleted, so who knows? But going through here, Antoine in chat goes, can I say that the C7 Corvette ZR1 was 755 horsepower and a 7-speed manual transmission, and it worked just fine? Why do these car companies all of a sudden think that 500 or 600 is too much for a manual transmission? Take the Cayman GT4 RS, 490 horsepower, Porsche says, and they don't have a manual for the GT4 RS that can handle the power. Hello, doesn't the 911 GT3 have 13 more horsepower than Cayman and still comes with a manual? Well, what's Nissan's excuse? I couldn't begin to tell you what Nissan's excuse is. I don't see a legitimate one. And to your point, to us, mostly, you can get around with 700 horsepower pretty easily in a manual. I do it. I daily it. It's not difficult if you have a head on your shoulders and you're not a complete idiot. That said, again, I'll go back to one of my favorite George Carlin lines of all time. And he goes, imagine how dumb the average person is. And then realize half the population's dumber than that. And then equate that to cars. Money doesn't equal brains. And I can at least understand if it has that level of horsepower. This might have 450 horsepower. Might. That is not a ton. It's a lot of horsepower, but it's not a ton of horsepower. Nothing, not such a leap from 400 that it warrants, no, automatic's the better way to go. To your 911 point, my guess there is that the gearbox in the 911, obviously the engines are in different spots. So I don't know if the gearboxes are the same. I'm assuming the internals have to be completely different. I'm not sure. But again, Porsche learned this lesson with the GT, with the 991 GT3, I think. And that they only had enough money to develop one transmission for the car. And since it was the motorsports division, the dual clutch won out. It's the fastest transmission. It's going to get you around the track the fastest. So that's why it won out. But they ended up then creating the 911R, which had a lot of GT3 goodies, but a manual gearbox. And then they used the profit from that to develop a manual box. And that's where you have the GT3 that are track focused. And then you have the GT3 Touring, I think it's called. That is basically the manual version. So it's people who want speed, people who want engagement. Both cars are crazy, stupid fast. Mark goes, LS swap it. I mean, it would fit. No doubt about it. I mean, a dual overhead cam V6 with room for turbo stuff should accommodate a pushrod V8 with no problem. And, I mean, people have been LS swapping Nissans for years. Andrew's got a nice 370Z Hot Wheel. And then goes on to say, if I was shorter, I would love to own one of them because I love the Nissan Z, even since I was little and they were around. I always wanted to own one. The Z is a great car. I mean, I've even looked at the old 300ZX, not the 7 or 80s one, but the 300ZX from like the late 90s back in the JDM revival. Like, I always loved those, even though they were pretty simple. I don't care for the newer Supras. I like the older ones a lot more. I think a lot of people are in that vein. But also, that said, a lot of people, like, when was peak automotive exterior design? An argument could be made that it was in the mid to late 60s, just across the board. Japanese cars, American muscle cars, European sports cars, the lot, down the line. And that's the car you want, but living with it, I mean, 2001, 2002 wasn't that long ago, but creature comforts have come a long way in the last 20 years or so. That Justin echoes what we were saying. The Supra comes with a manual this year. Again, it's Porsche learned the lesson. Toyota learned the lesson. Like, there's a significant segment of the automotive population that will have no shortage in engagement, i.e. a manual transmission. And again, like, I understand that automatics are becoming more and more prevalent. And I understand that in today's day and age, it really doesn't pay off to develop a manual gearbox unless you're guaranteed a certain number of sales. Because nobody's really developing them anymore, which is a shame. But it just, there's no development in this, man. Like, you have the engine, you could, I don't know the order of which they do things, but you could have engine in, wired harness, transmission in, drive, all the drivetrain, then send it off to have the suspension and stuff put in. Although I'm guessing suspension goes first. I'm not 100% sure. But it's not it's not like we're talking about this thing having 600 horsepower and needing a complete redesign or beefing up of the CD009. And not for nothing, there's aftermarket companies that are doing that already. They just say it. It just, like I said, it just doesn't make sense. Andrew goes on, I love how Nissan always comes on top with their racing performance cars. Do go on. Trying to think. I mean, the R35. What's that? Yeah.
Phrasing?
Yeah, whatever. The R35 GTR was pretty successful in GT3 racing. They've had some success over in Super GT. Effectively, they're Renault in Formula One.
Yeah.
But, at any rate, I could get bogged down on that for a while.
Yeah.
They still hold the fastest ever speed recorded at Le Mans, because of a stuck wastegate.
Because of a broken turbo.
Doug goes, I would rather have a stock Miata than a high horsepower sports car with an automatic. Manuals are simply so much more fun. I completely agree. You put an LS in that Miata and it's awesome.
I would say there's one exception to that rule, but that's a personal preference, is the Jag F-Type, just because, one, that's my attainable dream car, and two, that car is a lot of fun at 30 miles an hour. Just because of the sound, you can get like gunfire out of the back from the exhaust, and it's just a very engaging chassis. A lot of people will say that the 911 is more engaging, and that's true. But like for me, I like just front end GT cars, and that was one of the most ultimate modern front end GT cars. So that doesn't come in a manual for the V8. It comes in a manual for the V6. So if you want a manual F-Type, you can have it. But for me, at least, the only exception to that rule in a modern car is the F-Type, just because of like how much theater there is, how like beautiful it is, the sound, the V8, yada yada yada. And I guess the counter argument to that is you could kind of say the same thing about the AMG GTS, but like for me, that's not the same argument. A beautiful car, amazing car. I've driven it in multiple different trims, but the F-Type to me is just better personally, it's not a better car. The Mercedes is a better car by almost every metric. But for me, the F-Type is just the car I fell in love with. So if I'm gonna have one, it's got to be the V8, and you can get like unending gunshots out of the exhaust. So that's a car I can have fun with at 30 miles an hour, even though it's got a 550 horsepower supercharged V8 and a paddle gearbox. So like, I'd say that everyone probably has at least one exception to that rule, just because.
Did the F-Type Rs come with a manual option?
F-Type Rs never had a manual. The V6 has only had
that.
a manual.
So to that point, and you mentioned the car that's one of my exceptions is the AMG GT.
Yeah,
GTS. Although the GTR is otherworldly, but that AMG GTS, I remember driving that on the track at Monticello and being like, yeah, I think I'd rather this over like a 911.
Yeah.
But just real quick, because that's actually an excellent segue, I just want to catch all the way up with chat. We were talking about design, and let's see here, where did I want to pick up? We were talking about automotive design, and Andrew, you're right, like Godzilla, obviously the R32 GTRs, touring car racing, Datsuns with Paul Newman. I mean, that's my whole inspiration behind wanting to build a 510, is to do a Bob... Crap, I'm going to remember. I forget the name of the racing team, but it's the most famous 510 Nissan livery there's ever been, in my opinion.
Bob Sharp?
Bob Sharp Racing. So
the red, white, and blue one, or red, white, and gold?
Red, white, and blue, like with the big numbers on the side, yeah.
Yep.
Mark Anthony goes, something about the lines in the 70s and 80s. I agree. There's something, Radwoody good looking about some of the cars from the 80s, but there's some also pig ugly cars from the 80s.
Yes. Accurate statement.
Doug, who thinks anything post-war is, and when we say post-war, I mean World War II, is the devil, says 1930s was peak automotive design. Nate goes, the 300ZX had rear wheel steering. Crazy underrated car. Could not agree with you more. Anthony goes, you can get some nice pops out of the V60, Greg, which he already does, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's part of the reason why I got this. It is sort of like a wagon F-Type. It's cool. You go into like that range of like 2,500 to 4,000 RPM, and you just feather the throttle, and it's just constantly backfiring. It's great.
Speaking of the F-Type, one of my probably the best driving experience I've ever had in an F-Type was the 400 SV or whatever. I forget what it was, but it was a 400 horsepower V6, and that to this day is the best sounding V6 I've ever heard.
Interestingly enough, that V6 is literally the V8, just the two cylinders lopped
Which
off.
is the best way to make a V6, just saying.
Damn straight. Not straight six, but damn straight.
In a V. Antoine goes on, I hate to say it, and I might be wrong for saying this, but the U.S. population has come too soft for being anti-manual transmission and pro-automatic transmission. Now we should understand why the Europeans and Asians in their countries, respectively, always rag on Americans because we constantly complain about stupid things like traffic being something that convinces the bean counters at car companies and headquarters to be the thing that has to make us so weak and boring. Yet I don't hear about any Europeans and Asians complaining about driving manual transmission on their continents, respectively, and manuals actually sell on the other side of the world versus the U.S. Yes. So
that's a big cultural question.
So basically, to kind of dumb that down for the sake of conversation, outside of the U.S., manuals are more prevalent. Yes. Our country has become soft and gone the way of the automatic. I mean, honestly, to be perfectly honest with you, you could say that was a product of post-war design, the 60s and 70s, and even into the 80s, of the average person, instead of getting, say, a crossover, got basically a land yacht. And it had the column shifter and everything like that. And that's what families wanted. And then as enthusiasm dwindles, the demand for a manual, unfortunately, dwindles. Which is why if you have someone who's younger and into cars, foster that. Like whether it be my neighbor has a kid who loves my Mustang, and it's like, yes, everything I can do to make that kid continue to love cars, right? Well, within reason, financially speaking. But
let him rev it.
he'd have to literally stand on the. He's 2 or 3 years old.
That's fine. That's fine. Let him rev it. Get him in the pedal box. Let him push it with his hand. He'll love it.
Duly noted. Hopefully the dad is okay with the vlog on it. But as you raise people who drive less and less. So as a whole, we are driving less. More and more people, especially in cities, don't even own cars, right? And with the lack of enthusiasm, people don't care. To most people, a car is a tool. And and when you go out and let's just say, let's say you need to cut down a tree, right? You're not going to use a handsaw. You're going to get a chainsaw, right? You're going to get the tool that makes the job at hand easier, and an automatic just does that. And then what really irks me, what really grinds my gears, is when you get influencers, YouTubers, selling their manual cars and getting automatics.
Looks at me. Yeah. Well, what that's a great segue into the point I was going to make is and it really is sort of a cultural kind of thing, because in the US, first off, to say that like European and Asian countries on the whole drive manuals more is a correct statement. You can say that for Western Europe, Eastern Europe. You can say it for Africa. You can say it for the South Americans. You can say it for all of Russia and Eastern Asia. You can say it for basically almost the entirety of the rest of the world except for the United States. The thing about the United States is sort of exactly what Chad hinted on, was it's all about convenience. And what we've been sort of fed to believe in this country, and this is not a political thing or a conspiracy thing at all, what we've kind of fed to believe is just like, convenience over everything. And that sort of goes with everything. It's not just cars. It's like, oh, well, what's going to make our life more convenient? Well, we've gotten to this. This is the entirety of the world's knowledge in our pocket. So what's going to be more convenient in a car? Rowing your own gears, or letting the car do it for you? Or an EV, letting an EV with no transmission, just some motors, waft you down the road in silence. And that's part of the problem, is because the convenience factor is above everything. And it's not necessarily laziness, and it's not necessarily softness. It's just that we've always been kind of fed that message. So, on a weekend, instead of going out and doing work on your lawn, get someone to do it for you. Or, instead of doing this, that, and the other thing on the weekend, sit around and watch football and yada, yada, yada. And it's not necessarily laziness. It's more of just like, let other things happen for you and let other things do things for you. And that's part of the reason why we're going to this whole self-driving thing. That's the thing, because so many people are doing this. So many people are not interested in driving because they see it as a menial task. They see it as a means to an end to make money in jobs that they hate. So why love the thing that gets you to the job that you hate? I totally get that from a basic human understanding perspective. I get that. It's not out of the realm of possibility that's part of the reason why people don't like driving, is because it just brings them to jobs that they hate. But changing a behavior on a global or countrywide scale is much harder to do than just to change the tool that those people are using. And that's why we're getting automatic transmissions more. That's why we're getting self-driving more, which doesn't exist, by the way. And I'll say it every time. Self-driving does not exist. It still doesn't exist. It's not a thing. It's fake news. It's fake advertising. Full self-driving is incorrect. It's wrong. And Tesla should stop it, and they should be punished for it. The end. Period. We will probably end up getting there one day, but it's not happening now. But that's why people want it. They don't want to drive. They just want to get to their job. They want to do their thing. They want to come home and they want to relax and they want to do whatever they want. They want to spend time with their kids. They want to be on their phones while they drive and yada, yada, yada. But that's the thing. Like we've been fed that convenience is convenience above everything. And that's why that's why, everyone, it's why automatics were an option in the 80s and 90s. Also because automatics in the 80s and 90s were kind of hot garbage on 99% of cars. But also because like people just didn't really care about automatic transmissions, and then they realized it was a lot easier to drive those cars and not really have to pay attention as much, and yada yada yada. The snowball grows, and then we are here today, or manuals almost don't exist anymore. So it's a very interesting thing, transportation these days, because as enthusiasm kind of dies out, and which it is a sad thing, because Chad mentioned it, enthusiasm is dying out. That sucks, because and I'll put it from a full consumer perspective, right? This is the second largest purchase in almost every single person's life that they can humanly get, right? A house being the biggest. Maybe a wedding ring being the second biggest, depending on what kind of cars you buy or how much you spend on an engagement ring, whatever. The likelihood of this being the second most expensive thing in your life that you purchase is pretty high. And people buy them based on things that have absolutely nothing to do with cars, which is absolutely baffling to me. That's the thing that makes me totally crazy, is higher seating position and cargo space, which almost nobody needs except for maybe 4 or 5 times a year tops. So that makes no sense. Like, the person that's shopping for a Nissan Rogue doesn't need a Nissan Rogue. They need a sedan. There's zero reason for that person to need a Nissan Rogue. A Honda Accord and a Nissan Rogue have almost identical interior cabin spaces. The Nissan Rogue is just higher and has a cargo area. That's it. Those are the only differences to those cars. The seating space, the headroom is about the same, yada, yada, yada. It is hilarious to me that someone would buy a Nissan Rogue over a similarly equipped Honda Accord, because you get the lower you are to the ground, the more in control you are of the car. If you look at all of these SUVs and these crossovers and what have you, and you look at them in the what if scenarios, if you look at the what if scenarios, because that's what people are buying these things for, is the what if scenario. Oh, well, what if I need that cargo space? What if I need to go to Home Depot and yada, yada, yada? Full transparency, you can still get 30 bags of mulch in a Honda Accord with the seats down. Pretty easy to do. Throw a tarp down, put 15 in the back seat, 15 or 20 in the trunk. You can do it. Ask me how I know. You can still do all those things with a sedan. But the what if scenarios are not why you should buy a car, but that's basically what it is. What if I need the cargo space? Oh, what if I need the interior space? The interior space is the same. Unless you're buying a Chevy Tahoe, which is basically the new land yacht with giant freaking, interior space and cargo space. Like, you don't need that. Like, and I think Chad went off stream for a second. He's responding in chat. Like, I just described 78% of the pickup truck market. 100%. You don't need these giant freaking pickup trucks. And I like trucks. Trucks are cool. Like, you just don't need that. Christian says, I do need that, Greg. You don't need that. Nobody needs it. It's a very different thing. If you look at every moose test ever, and then a moose test, if you don't know what it is, it's a bunch of cones set up to simulate if something jumped out in front of your car, like a moose, that if you hit it, you're toast. So you're gonna wrench the car to the left, wrench the car to the right. You're gonna do a big chicane, a big S-turn right around the animal, right? And most SUVs can't even complete it. And that's not a lie. There's testing footage of all of these things. Go look it up. Go look at Moose Test crossovers. Almost none of them can complete it. You know what can complete it? Every single wagon, every single sedan, every single coupe, every single sports car, and every single car that's lower to the ground can complete that test, or at least complete it within a reasonable amount that if you got better tires, it would be able to complete it. So like, it's one of those things where it bothers me to no end that people buy crossovers because for things that they don't need. Now we have a crossover. It's a Volvo XC90.
I hate these people. I'm one of these people.
We use that. No, but here's the difference though. I actually use that car and its cargo capacity for reasons that I need it for. I use the what if scenarios I'm talking about are probably about 50 to 100 days of the year. Going to the beach with lots of stuff, going on family trips with lots of stuff, transporting my kids to school, bringing things to and from my wife's library that she works at that she needs to transport big boxes for books, things that we need to throw away, things that we're either buying or selling. Like we actually use the space that we have, but I'd be willing to wager that 90%, and I think it's that high of a percentage, 90% of crossover buyers don't use that space almost ever, except for maybe once or twice a year. And what a lot of people do is they chuck shit in their rear and they just forget about it. And it's just a trunk that collects things. And and even if it isn't, it's just I don't know. It's one of the more things I'm one of the biggest things I'm more passionate about, clearly, because I've been ranting about it for the last 10 minutes. It's just obnoxious. You don't need these cars. And Christian might need the car. Like I'm not trying to like say you don't need it. But like
how dare you?
Most people don't need them. Most people don't need them. Like honestly, I don't need the wagon. I like the wagon, but it's also a car, and it's more functional.
Basically, what you described is wagons, like
right.
Wagons,
but that's the other thing.
In general,
that's the other thing that bothers me.
Are going to get better. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, your car got stretched vertically and turned into a crossover. Everything else identical, just the suspension, the bodywork modification needed, got stretched and made into a crossover. Your car is going to get better fuel economy.
Oh, 100%. No, it would. If you take a comparable V60, I mean, not this version, obviously. This is the high Zoot model. If you take like a regular T5 V60 and compare it to a crossover, this is going to get better gas mileage, and it's just going to be a better overall car. You have more control on the road. You have you're closer to the road, which lets you be more understanding of the road. And the difference in height between one of these and like a Nissan Rogue or a Toyota RAV4, it's not enough to feel like you're commanding the road, which is what people have been fed to believe about crossovers as a whole. Like the higher seating position does not make you safer. Period. It literally doesn't.
No, so
it doesn't give you better view of anything other than on the highway. It just doesn't.
So here's the thing, right? We live in an era where 360-degree cameras are a thing. So visibility,
great point.
Doesn't matter.
Great point.
To Christian's point, is Tahoe technically a crossover? No.
No, it's a body-on-frame truck.
Yeah. All SUVs. Well, like originally SUVs were body on frame. They were basically,
yes,
we have this pickup truck. Let's make it more people-y. Boom.
Yeah, that's literally what it was.
That's legitimately how the 4Runner got its start. The 4Runner originally, there was a dealer, and I forget where, but they had a bunch of small Tacomas, the Tacoma's predecessor and stuff like that. And they were like, they had a couple customers come up and say, hey, we like this vehicle, but we need X, Y, and Z. So there just so happened to be an RV manufacturer down the street from them. So they literally would take a Taco, have the fiberglass a body around it, and then that's how the 4Runner was born, because Toyota's like, wait a minute, people are buying these things. We're not getting as much money as we should from it. Here's the thing.
Well, if you look at the
here's the thing
here's
the thing I will say about crossovers, and this isn't necessarily a defense for them in the volume in which they are purchased, but I will say this: my father, and then especially my mother now, getting in and out of a crossover is magnitudes easier for them than getting into and out of a car.
Totally agree with that.
So I understand the case for it, but when you're a 26-year-old,
but what crossover though? What crossover?
Well,
because
we have
if you're talking
Equinox.
about like a Ford Explorer, that's going to be just as difficult as a sedan. I would say something like a BMW X2, an X1, like that height. Definitely, I agree with that. Magnitude's easier, but even like a Rogue or RAV4, that kind of thing. But like a big SUV is not easier to get in and out of than a sedan.
Right. There's a lot to that, right? Like some sedans are easier to get in and out of than, say, my car or your car, right?
Sure.
It's about personal need. The point we're trying to make is,
right.
Is that most of you're 30 years old, you got a couple of kids, you got the house, what have you. 99.99% of what you get a crossover for can be done by a wagon. And I would argue that 90% of it could be done by a sedan. And it's just people have bought into it. I mean, here's the thing. The reason we're selling so many crossovers is it's all Chrysler's fault. It's all, and here's why. Chrysler sort of made the minivan popular with families, right? It was ease of getting in and out of. It wasn't a big truck, so it got good gas mileage. It was sliding doors, made just throwing your kids in there easy, and then everyone saw that and was like, yes, that is a brilliant idea. We need to make them. Well, then minivans sort of got a stigma attached to them. You're giving up on life. You got the white picket fence in the minivan, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then someone came along with the idea, I forget who it was, and really for the point of this, it's not unimportant, but they're like, well, they like this. What if we just made a wagon taller? And it wasn't a minivan. It was slightly less practical than a minivan, but it wasn't a minivan. And that was the whole selling point. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing commercials back in the day. It's like, you could give up and get the minivan, or you could get this. And the family guy is like, well, shoot, I mock Joe down the street all the time for having a minivan. I'll get this. And then all of a sudden you raise a generation of people getting in and out of those fucking things. And they're like, I really like this. And now all of a sudden it's what sells.
So like, here's the deal. And I wanted to touch on what Christian just said, that he thought the Ford Explorer was an SUV, and that it being a crossover. It was an SUV. It still technically can be classified as an SUV, but they call it a crossover to sell more of them. The original Explorer is the modern reason we have SUVs.
Yes.
There were some before that, but the Ford Explorer was based on the Ranger back in the early 90s, and they made them because they saw the market for them. And that was the whole call. That was the car that made the SUV craze explode, was the original Ford Explorer. Now, it used to be an SUV, and now it's technically classified as a crossover. And crossover is a term that it's just based on a like a skateboard or car chassis, essentially, that's used in multiple different ways.
Is basically what
it's unibody versus body on frame. That's all. That's the whole crossover terminology right there in a nutshell.
I mean,
really quick, AZ Gull, thank you for joining over on YouTube. Glad to have another Polestar brethren on stream. Thanks for joining, brother. Appreciate it. Welcome. We're talking SUVs right now. We're about to talk used cars after this. Please stick around.
Yes.
Glad to have another Volvo Vista on stream.
So
go ahead, Chad.
So I think Christian also asked, so why not get an SUV over instead of a crossover? It's very simple. Crossovers, you can they're basically lighter, so you don't need as big of an engine. You don't need it, and fuel economy. That's basically it in a nutshell. And to the crossover SUV nomenclature type of a thing, think of it in this respect. All Kleenexes are face tissue, but not all face tissue are Kleenex, if that makes any sense. Meaning, a crossover is an SUV, but not all. You know what like crossovers, things like the Tahoe, the Expedition, I believe the new full size. What is it? The Land Cruiser and stuff like that. Basically, if you can draw a direct parallel to a pickup truck model, those are your body on frame OG sports utility vehicles. Like that's where like SAV came in, sport activity vehicle, and blah 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 blah.
Right.
It's just a way of sort of, nobody really wants the delineation. If you just sit here and say, like, because like people associate the stuff based off of trucks of having a little bit more inclement weather, bad terrain, off-roady capability. So like when it snows, say you live in New Jersey and it snows, right? So you call it an SUV or something similar as a marketing thing. And then eventually crossover became a way of sell. It's all sales. Crossover was a way of saying, hey, it's like a car but bigger, and it sells it that way. You know,
the biggest difference between a body on frame SUV and a crossover SUV is ride compliance, because a crossover is unibody, which gives you a lot better ride compliance and comfort, as opposed to a body on frame, which gives you a lot more like torsional rigidity. It provides a lot less flex in the chassis. It provides you a lot more off-road prowess. So like someone that's using an SUV as a daily driver, they're going to 99% of the time gravitate towards a crossover, just because it's a much more comfortable vehicle to drive on the whole than a body on frame thing that's more geared toward a pickup truck.
Right.
Now,
and body on frame stuff is also ancient. It's basically tractor suspension. That's
very just old technology too.
You know, I think to kind of put a bow on this, because I want to talk about stuff that like doesn't send me into a blind rage.
No, this is good content. Let's keep going. But no, I also agree.
If you go throughout automotive history, there's always been a need for that family vehicle, and it was sort of universally hated by the enthusiasts of the day, just because, you know, what would you rather have, the 2-door coupe or the 4-door wagon? Well, back in the 70s, the 4-door wagon was you've given up on life, you've had a family, your time for fun has come to an end.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it became the minivan, then it became the crossover, and now like look, as much as I would like to say, and especially our next topic, specifically talking about cars we like, is that the person who hates cars the most but needs one, their needs are going to be far more catered to than us.
Right, because those are the people that actually buy
there's just
the cars.
more of them.
Correct.
You know, I don't know how we control that population. I don't know how we reprogramming or what have you, but it's just the nature of the beast. Like when there was a fuel crisis, what dominated? The little small Japanese cars. Nobody really wanted them, but they needed them.
Right.
And then Christian, to answer...
And it launched many a wonderful car company because of it.
To answer Christian's question, what's the difference between an SUV and an SAV? Pretty much nothing, other than the fact that, like, if you really want to... If SUV has become known as the body on frame, you want to grab onto that from a marketing perspective, but also be different enough to where you're not giving a false impression, right? You don't want to sit here and say that your RAV4 is a capable off-roader, even though the original RAV4s, as pig ugly as they were actually pretty decent.
They were pretty
off-roaders.
Good.
They had transfer cases, like they were actually pretty legit.
Yeah.
but you don't want to say a modern RAV4 can do the same things a Jeep or a Bronco or that sort of stuff can do. But you want to give the impression that it can, but be different, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, well, it's not an SUV, but it's an SAV. I don't go off-road all that often.
Yeah, I think Antoine pretty much hit it with the comment he made. Mine was going to be very similar to that. Sport utility vehicle is to the RAV4. Or sorry, sport utility vehicle is to the 4Runner, as sport activity vehicle is to the Wrangler. That's probably the best one I can say, because the Wrangler is a sport activity vehicle in the sense that you can take the doors off. It doesn't have a ton of cargo space. It has a 4-door option. It's more of a lifestyle activity vehicle that happens to be amazing at off-roading, whereas the 4Runner is basically just a cabbed truck, essentially. You know, it's basically a cabbed Taco, Tacoma. So that's probably the best SUV versus SAV I can think of.
So, based off of a quick internet search, it's all BMW's fault.
To the interwebs.
Apparently, BMW was the one to coin the phrase sport activity vehicle. It's actually a registered trademark.
Oh, interesting.
And it was a way to give the active, on-the-go luxury lifestyle. And then they have a picture of it driving through a puddle. I think...
I can do that at the mall.
Yeah, exactly. X1. Basically, it's a utility is selling the. I think it's the inverse to what you said. SUV is technically, as this is defined, is the ability to go off road and kind of has that as part of a primary focus is the design, where sport activity gives the illusion of that, but is more selling a lifestyle, as opposed to the actual capability. I don't know. This is all making my freaking head hurt. Greg, you found a sports car for less money than you thought you would have to spend. Discuss.
Yes, I need to discuss that, but first I need to urinate. So,
all right.
Please don't put the camera on me. I'll be right back, and we're going to talk about used cars, because it does talk. The good news is that used car prices are coming down. So, Chad, why don't you intro that? And I'll be back in literally 2 minutes.
All right. Now we're switching to the ring cam on the interior of the house. See the Gregson in his natural habitat. Anywho, oh gosh, what was that? Anywho, so as we all know, Cars You Want have pretty much, thanks due to the entire automotive market during COVID and supply chain and dealerships realizing that, wait a minute, we can have half the inventory and still make the same nut. A combination thereof, car prices went through the roof. And that obviously trickled down to used cars. And the enthusiast market was hit just as hard. I'll give you a perfect example. My car, the Mustang, I bought just before COVID for $25K. Fast forward a year and a half, and the same car with the same miles, with the same spec, was $32,000. And I think they continued to climb up until relatively recently, where we've seen the market kind of do this. But as a general... Doug, I understand that a lot of places just didn't have inventory, but I've also I've had some conversations with dealership. Every dealership, I don't mean to be painting such wide strokes, but like the Dodge dealership near me, one of the sales managers flat out told me, it's like, yeah, we could have more inventory, but we're hitting our numbers with what we got. So supply chain plays a big part. I'm not saying supply chain didn't play any part of that. What I'm saying is that if you teach a salesman how to make the same amount of money and make less sales, they're going to take that route. And I'm not trying to take a dump on salespeople. I was one for a vast majority of my life. But it's like anything. Like, you teach a business how to make money with less effort, so to speak. And even though it may not be 100% of the reason, they're going to investigate how to do more of that. But the short version of that is that cars got crazy expensive. I mean, I think in the span from 2019 to where we are today, the average purchase price of a new car in this country rose by $10,000. I mean, Greg's back, so he's a little more nerdy on the numbers, but it's somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000. The average purchase price went up, and obviously that trickles down into used cars. And then the enthusiast market has always been kind of its own thing, but hey, if a Accord or a RAV4 or whatever is increasing in price by a significant magnitude, the fun stuff is obviously going to as well. But there seems to be light at the end of the tunnel. And Greg actually found, because Greg's like all of us, we're constantly looking for new cars. Even though I can't afford one at this point, we're constantly looking for that next car. Believe it or not, even I do that. Granted, for me, it's more of a truck-based, but we're always doing that. So, Greg, what did you find, my good sir?
So, quick intro to what I found is I'm looking at two different articles over on my second computer here, which is just my work computer. From April 16th of this year, and it's still pretty close to this, average new car price actually drops, but it's still over $48,000. Now, before the pandemic, it was around $33,000, $34,000 in 2019. So it's big, huge jump for new car prices ever since 2019.
Thanks,
and it's
Doug.
Yeah, Doug, jerk. And then also average used vehicle price from February of this year. I'm sure there's an updated number, but first line of it says used car prices continue to fall. The average used vehicle carried a list price of $26,510 last month, down $633 from 1 month before. I haven't seen any updated numbers. I didn't get a chance to look at them before that. I'm sure they've fallen a little bit more. Maybe they've gone up a little bit just because of the amount of
sincere
cars
thanks,
that they do
Doug.
sell in the summer compared to, and Doug can confirm if he sells more cars in the summer than the winter. I believe summer is usually hotter for sales than the winter. At least it was a long time ago. But the good news about those two things and those two headlines is that car prices are coming down. They're coming down slowly, but they are coming down. Now, two places where these prices, this is four actually, two places where these prices are actually coming down, which is very good, is hot cars that are basically just hot versions of regular cars. So BMW M3s, Audi S4s, Polestars, even though these are holding their value pretty well, you're seeing E46s come down just a touch overall, even though you see crazy numbers for some of the clean, low mileage ones. E90s, E9X M3s are coming down as well. You're also seeing prices come down for sports cars. A couple of good examples are C6 Corvettes. You also have some British sports cars that are coming down, V8 Vantages from the Gaydon era between 2006 and 2016. Those are coming down. And also my personal favorite, which I mentioned earlier on stream, is F-Types. And that is the car that I found recently, meaning today, that was really angry because I'm going to be in the market hopefully for a sports car next summer. If all goes well, then it'll be next summer that I'm going to probably finally be able to get another sports car 6 years later. Now, the sports car that I want is an F-Type because it sounds ridiculous. It's got a V8 engine that's supercharged, and it runs 11s out of the box. And Chad, if you want to pull up the link that I showed you earlier, there's one right now at CarMax for around $47,000. It's $46,998, so $47,000 basically. And the reason why I looked at CarMax, and there are cheaper ones out there, is because you can still buy an F-Type with a warranty from CarMax for under 50 grand. That's pretty good. And if Doug DeMuro taught us anything, the unlimited mileage, bumper to warranty is wonderful to have. And especially if you have one from CarMax, because his Range Rover famously was the thing that started his channel to go pretty big on Jalopnik and on YouTube. So having an F-Type with a warranty, 9 years out of production, that's pretty good, I'd say. So for me and my purposes of owning an F-Type, I really don't need more power than 550 horsepower. Would I like it? Hell yeah. Of course. Why would I not? But the F-Types really aren't like crazy horsepower cars. Chad is AFK right now, so he will be back in just a minute. No worries. We'll bring up that listing soon. But the F-Type really isn't a great tuner car the way that Mustangs and Corvettes are. Like there's not a lot of modifications that you can go completely batty on. Velocity AP or VAP for short has a really good kit that you can do different pulleys and a tune on, and it should push you around 600 at the wheels, or not at the wheels, over 600 at the crank. I think people are dynaming them around 650 at the crank, which is good. But like, the SVR is 575. Regular F-Types are 550. Like, you really don't need more power than that, quite frankly, on the road. If you're going to track the car, more power is always fun. That being said, this car with a warranty doing an aesthetics build would be really cool to do. And handling mods, because handling mods won't, negate any engine warranty, literally ever. That's a really cool thing. And especially from CarMax, which inflates their prices a little bit. So if you look at sports cars just on the whole, a lot of them are coming down, is because the people that want to buy them, they've sort of bought all that they want over the last 2 years. A lot of people didn't have a lot to do with their money in 2020 and 2021 and into 2022. And now that those people have bought those cars, they're either selling them because they weren't the cars that they wanted, or they have now more money because they made more money in the pandemic, or whatever the reason. They're not buying as many. Used car prices are coming down because people are just not buying as many sports cars. They're not buying as many used cars. New car supply is coming back up. So, used cars are cheaper now than they were. And here is the link that I sent Chad. It's a really nice black wheels, black F-Type. Automatic transmission. You shut your face. I wonder if anyone's ever manual swapped an F-Type V8. Actually, I've never looked that up. I really wonder if they have, but I bet you no one has. Be a cool project. Either way, a F-Type with a warranty, with an aesthetics build and a handling build, I think would be a really cool project, honestly, because we all know how fast they are. We all know the kind of sound they make. And
that is just top notch. I'm going to sell a car. Let's get the blurriest picture we can. Done.
Yeah, they made that blurry because the metal on those keys is the cheapest metal known to man. I'm fairly certain that
screen known to man.
Also, yes.
CarMax. Don't ever change.
Correct. It's Either way, you can still get the whole point of this is you can get a 2-door rear-wheel drive 550 horsepower supercharged V8 sports car from CarMax with inflated prices with a warranty for under 50 grand. That is really just positive stuff towards the whole of the used car market going down.
I mean,
which is great.
Yes.
Because if you look, and for context, if you looked for any F-Type at the height of the pandemic stupidity, you couldn't find one for under 60 grand with relatively low mileage, right? Like this one on CarMax is 39,000 miles. For anything under that, excuse me, you're talking like 55, 60, maybe even 65 in the country. Also, get that off the screen. I'm not doing another moist thing this week. Get it the fuck off the screen. Gross. I'm moist for that. Blech, blech. Ugh, that was gross to say.
Yes, Andrew, it is a Jaguar.
Yes, it's a Jaguar. It's a Jaguar F-Type. To get over to AZ Gall, just real quick on YouTube, I missed a bunch of your comments, dude. Save 20K buying used. I hope that's the right car. Only driven it 2 minutes. It is the right car, definitely, for sure. Then he asked, do you still have the check engine light because of the downpipe? I don't have the check engine light because of the downpipe because I tuned it. The next 2 videos that I will put out, hopefully one on Wednesday of this week and one on Tuesday of next week, will describe why. What's the best cheap mod or mods you can do for the money? Oh man, that's a loaded question. Every single enthusiast is going to have a different answer to that. But for any car ever, for me, sway bars, because they are relatively inexpensive. They flatten out the ride, and they make your car handle, no matter what car it is, just so much better without changing vertical suspension geometry. You can, like, the best example of that is the old WRX I had, which is a cool car. There's a 2014 batch, but the body roll in it, it felt like a minivan in some cases. I literally just put 3 millimeter larger and stiffer sway bars on it, and it handled dead flat. No crazy suspension needed, no KWV3s, none of this. I literally had just stock suspension with upgraded sway bars, and man, it cost me like $800 installed. No, actually less than that. It was like $600 installed for front and rear sway bars installed. It was just a great mod, honestly. But best cheap mod for power, just get a tune. And Chad, why am I wrong?
Okay, so number 1, there is no blanket best cheap mod you can do for your car, and here's why. Every car is different. So a perfect example of that: the 2015 Mustang GT. In regular form, small brakes. Actually, let me rephrase that. The regular GT versus the Performance Pack. Performance Pack had bigger brakes, better cooling, beefier sway bars, better suspension tuning. So the first mod for a Performance Pack owner versus a regular GT owner is going to be different, right? You might want to go with better suspension. You might want to go with better brakes. You might want to go with that if you have the regular GT. But if the factory already did those mods for you, like Greg said, a tune on a turbocharged car will get you the best bang for buck. Something as simple as an exhaust may not increase performance, but it will increase that placebo effect of you thinking you're going faster because your car's louder. I always maintain that if it's let's just say hypothetically, the car comes from factory pretty well sorted suspension wise. Best first mods for a turbocharged car is downpipe and tune. For a naturally aspirated or supercharged car, long tube headers and a tune. Those are going to be your biggest jumps in power apart from, like what I did, right? Like I picked up with an intake manifold, long tubes, and a tune, 50 wheel horsepower on the Mustang. Uh, Obviously, with the supercharger, we picked up quite a bit more, almost 300 to the crank. Um, but in a sense, it's also personal preference, right? For me, I like noise. I like my one of my biggest one of the things with like the C30 that I always wish I could have done, or that I would have done if I had kept it, was to cut the muffler off, because that car, even though the exhaust was very good, it was so quiet, and it made the car feel tame. Um, but and like not unsurprisingly, the Mustang is pretty dang rowdy. But if you're the type of person who's like, my car sufficiently makes a sufficient noise, I like the noise, I don't need to really mess around with too much, especially with modern performance cars where they have the active exhaust, you might want to go to a suspension mod. You might want to go to a sway bar or a chassis bracing or something to that effect. The point is that there's not just one mod that encompasses everyone.
Yeah, it depends on what you want. I mean,
Right.
AZ Goal says, or said over there, I know that I meant Polestar. So for this car, it's tough because I wanted a bit more power. The car is definitely powerful enough as it is for like a daily driver,
No
but
doubt.
I wanted a bit more power. I wanted something that was a bit closer to the M cars of the era that this was sort of made in, which was the F80 M3, and that had 425 horsepower at the crank. So I got a downpipe from Josh at 88 Fab and a tune from Rika Engineering. My third tune, or no, second tune, third tuning option. And now I'm making about 400 to 410 at the crank and over 500 foot-pounds of torque at the crank based on the dyno that I did. So for me, that's what I went with. As far as the best mod you can do to the car overall, again, it depends on what you want, but I would again say probably handling mods to this thing because it's a heavy car. It's close to 4,000 pounds in a package that's no bigger than an M3. Just a wagon version of an M3, really. It's a small-ish car that's pretty heavy. So I think better tires and sway bars would probably go a long way for this platform. They do have some. I mean, these are summer tires as it is, and I have Michelin Pilot Sport 4Ss, so I have, in my opinion, the best summer street tire made. But if you don't have them, I would get a better summer tire and do a little handling mod to it. I think that would go a long way for what you do. But again, it's also how you drive the car too. If you do long highway miles, power mods might be better because we always talk about it on stream. Between 400 and 500 horsepower is like the real sweet spot for power to be able to have fun and get yourself out of really kind of almost any sticky situation you could get into on the highway. So if you're doing lots of highway miles, I'd say probably a downpipe and a tune. If you're doing lots of back road driving, I would say sway bars and better tires. That's for this car, that would be exactly what I recommend.
Good advising, Gregson.
Yeah.
It comes down to personal preference, what you want out of the car, and really, the first mod, so to speak, is the purchase of the car. Is getting the car. If what you want is a canyon carving fun car, maybe high on handling, low on power, that sort of a thing, well, then maybe a Challenger Hellcat isn't the right place to start.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of an extreme example, but it kind of
but right.
It comes down to, like, you know, a lot of people, like, my first car, the first car I ever modified was a Focus, a Ford Focus. Obviously not a powerhouse from factory. It had 140 horsepower at the crank. You know, but it was a fun little car, and Ford Europe, UK, did a really good job with the chassis balance on it. So I went power because, again, I like power. If you've watched any of my build series, actually the two most recent, the Volvo and the Mustang, not so much the Lexus and the BMW, but you know, you can't make a Challenger into a Miata, and you can't make a Miata into a Challenger, right? Like, it's got to mesh with what you are into, and getting the right car is a big part of that. Now, I understand some of us younger in life, we had a car, we can't go out and buy a new one, and we want to modify it and stuff like that, which is great. Identify the car's weakness and mod there.
Yeah.
So we have Antoine in chat. By the way, my SS clapped out on me last week. Bummer. Which is why I wasn't on last week. I've been aggravated by it. I totally get you, brother. Been there. I gave it a new spark plugs last July. I changed out the battery earlier this year. I had 8 injectors replaced 2 weeks ago. And I will tell you that an injector story on another live stream. And a new purge valve. I don't know what's going on with it now, but my buddy diagnosed my car with his OBD2, and it shows the fuel pump or the fuel pump's harness terminal connector, or combination thereof, is both shot. I hope it's just the harness, the terminal connector, since that's $90. Because if it's the actual pump itself, it's going to take me 2 months up to October to save up for a replacement that costs over $300. That is a bummer. Modern cars, fun cars, project cars. They told us we'd have fun.
Buy a project car, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
You know, I bought the tire. I wasn't planning on buying tires for the Mustang this soon. I was planning on buying them, but not this soon. But
Just not now.
Circumstances dictated otherwise. Because one, I kind of wanted to do it for the content of, hey, my 700 horsepower Mustang's slower than this Volvo family person's car. Number one. Number two, I think it would be a hell of an enjoyable experience for you guys to watch me try to struggle for traction.
Also, yes.
You know, and that sort of thing. But, and yes, I could plug the tire, get around, but I won't be able to go to the track. And I don't, with the power I'm making, the speeds I could be running, and everything, I don't want a plug tire. Because again, that one tire is handling all of the horsepower from the Polestar.
Right.
To put it in perspective.
Correct.
I mean, that stinks, man. It always, like, to kind of make it, to bring it back to, like, perspective, like, was my entire experience with the M3. One thing after another, just never being able to enjoy the car, and it sucks. I totally feel you, man, and I hope the best for you. I hope it's the cheap fix, and I hope that gets you back on the road, because it's why we all love cars. We don't sit and look at them. Well, we do, but then we go and drive them.
Right. Exactly.
Andrew, my buddy, he went from a Volvo S80, got rid of it because the subframe was not properly fixed right at a body shop. Know that pain. To a Jaguar, and he's planning on upgrading to a nicer Jaguar in October. I mean, Jag makes some really good looking cars. Their V8s sound epic.
Yeah.
You know,
they're just great.
I would really love, would I love Greg to have the Jag today? Yes, because I know it would make him a happier human person, and I want my friend to be happy. Yes, I said it. It's on a stream. It stays on YouTube forever. Can't say I never said it.
Chad's buying me an F-Type. Confirmed.
I mean, a Hot Wheel. But also, I love the idea of, like, say next summer or so, us being able to go on, like, V8 road trips and just having 3 cars to play with.
Yes.
You know, because one of the things I really want to do especially since I have the time to do so now. I really want to start doing like little day trips, like / road trips, to do stupid stuff. We mentioned it on stream. Like go to Philadelphia and try to find the best cheesesteaks. Go to New Haven, Connecticut, and find the best pizza joint. You know, maybe make a weekend out of going to New England, and Greg can enjoy lobster while I try to push him into the Cape. You know, that sort of stuff.
Worth it. If I'm eating lobster, no shit.
You know,
go.
Weekend trip to Chicago to try the casserole they call a pizza. Like all that little stuff. And I think having interesting cars to do that as a backdrop would make a really fun series.
Yes. Oh yes, AZ Gull on YouTube. If you've left, thanks for watching, brother. Appreciate it. I appreciate the support on all the YouTube videos. Thanks for watching. But if you're, based on what I said before, Rika tune and a downpipe is best. I'd say go for that, but you're probably going to end up spending between $2,500 and $3,000 just from the tune, the downpipe, and the install of the downpipe. So that would, I mean, if that's what you're looking for, I'd say go for that, quite frankly. So it's it's definitely worth it. I can tell you right now, just from having it, it feels like the car should have been from factory.
Yes, and then Antoine goes,
Sure.
But Hanson doesn't have a V8 car unless there's something we've missed out on and y'all haven't told us.
No, not yet.
The best,
But he loves the C8 Corvette.
but
he loves that thing.
The best way to say that is Hanson doesn't have a V8 sports car this week.
yeah, that's a good point. He's gotten to drive a lot of really cool modern sports cars, V8 or otherwise. So, you know, he's had Bentleys, he's had the new C8 Corvette, he's had the Lexus LC, he's had, what else has he had recently?
I mean, it's not a V8, but it's the RS3 from Audi.
Yeah, he had the RS3, he had the new Supra.
He had the GR Corolla. He's going to get the
GR Corolla.
I think he had the Z.
Yep, he had the Z. And even just cars we've had in the past too.
I mean, he's had the F-Type.
We've all driven. Yeah, he's had the F-Type. We've all driven McLarens. He had the Alpha 4C. Like he's driven a ton of sports cars. Right. Honestly, like. You know, he knows what he wants at this point. And I think when he had the C8 Corvette, he was just like, you know, they say don't meet your heroes, but I'm happy I met this hero because I want one. And sitting in one, like it was the first C8 Corvette I actually sat in because he drove over to my place and was like, hey, this is, you know, check it out. I sat in and I'm like, this feels very fighter pilot-ish. It's definitely a different feeling than the old Corvettes. And old, I mean literally any other Corvette because it was front engined. The front engine cars feel like a GT car. You get in the C8, you're just like, okay, they've done things here. It's different.
Yeah, well, when you go mid-engine, there's a certain expectation of interior, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
To C8 fighter pilots for them automatic loving folks. I know I'm surrounded by morons.
Was that one Clarkson quote from the Africa special? It was like, "Oh, I believe I hear the thump of a 4-cylinder flat engine,
which can only herald the arrival of an incoming moron."
Yep, that's the whole phrase for the automatics now.
Well.
I love it. That's all right.
I'm not.
Look, if you guys want to call me a moron for wanting an automatic F-Type V8, bring it on. I'm very happy to be a moron. I will be a moron forever. Forever. Oh no, what are you doing?
Nothing.
I'm waiting. I'm just waiting for it because I know something's happening. I'm sure the text is gonna say automatic loving moron. Waiting. Yeah, right there it is. I mean, brevity. Brevity's key. That's good. Oh, and Andrew, of course I support you owning an S80, brother. You can have it as long as you want. Have you ever done a study to compare the number of times MOIST is mentioned in chat and the number of stars you get? Just saying. I don't know. That'd be a good case study, but that's a lot of footage to pour through. So I'm gonna go ahead and not do that.
Moist.
Doug sends 100 stars immediately after you say that. Scared by the third pedal. False. My 2 daily drivers before this were manuals.
Yes, but what was your daily before that? And before that?
Also 2 automatics that I had no say in what they were.
So, the majority of the cars you've owned in your life have been automatics. Where?
So personally, hang on.
That you've actually driven, not projects that have never been.
No,
finished.
I know. So, no. So that I've actually driven and owned as like a daily or something else. So just me. I'm not counting the XC90 because that's Kate's. So for me, I had the Taurus and the Accord, both automatics. Then I had the WRX, the V70R, and the Aston V8, which were all manuals. So that's 2 to 3. Then I had the Polestar. Oh, and I had the M3. So it's a 4 to 3 count. So I'm only 1 behind as far as manuals to automatics. But yes, majority rules correct. Yes, you are technically correct. The best kind of correct. Best show. I'm waiting for the new text to pop up. Regson, majority owned automatic.
Oh, man.
Waiting. Waiting. Streamlabs, this is going slowly for you, apparently. Waiting.
God, why is it like that?
Still waiting. Have you not done an updated text or no? Chat owns only manuals. Have you ever owned an automatic?
No.
At any point?
Never technically owned an automatic, ever. 2 Focuses, both manuals. Lexus IS300, manual. Volvo C30, manual. BMW M3, manual. Mustang, manual.
I thought one of the Focuses was automatic for some reason. I don't know why.
The reason I had to wait for 6 months to get the second Focus was, well, one, my dad didn't necessarily trust me to not drive like an idiot. And the second is that I demanded at the age of 19, by the by, that it had to be a manual.
Nice. Well, demanding a manual at the age of 19 compared to now, fantastically easier to make happen.
I mean, you didn't.
I didn't. I just wanted a car to get away from my house. I didn't give a shit what it was. I didn't care if it was a manual or not. I just wanted a car to be like, go away. I'm not here now. Go, leave me alone. I will be right back. I have to check my kid.
Check your kid. It is 10:36. Do you know where your children are? Anybody else old enough to remember those commercials?
Possibly pissing the bed.
Yeah, he is your son. Doug goes,
yeah.
14 years old, chat. I'm looking at the wrong screen. Doug goes, most of my cars have been auto too, but 100% of the new cars I bought were manual. Is your S60 manual? That's newer. Anyhow. Andrew, I can't tell if you're joking or not, but you think I would love the S80 because it was top luxury model with TVs and the DVD player, the S80 crown emblems on the doors, the HID xenon headlights with fog lights, and it's a P2 Executive S80 T6 Premier Edition. I could see Greg owning one. He would blend in so well with one. Look, I like those cars. I like the idea of a straight six. Like we saw last week, they can be made to look insanely gorgeous. That green wide body one. I know of the 9 viewers we have left, this might sound as some form of sacrilege. I'm kind of over Volvo at the moment. I like Volvo. I like the quirky weird. I would love to. When people ask me about them, I always say yes. I would recommend one. Nobody does interiors better than Volvo right now, in my opinion. It's just, here's the thing. If I was to get a Volvo again, I would 100% get a P2. P2? No, P1. Sorry. Probably another C30, although the V50 has me intrigued. And then I would 100% put in a pissed off NA version of the 5-cylinder, a la what FCP Euro is doing with their 850. And make sort of a touring car tribute build, and go that route. Remove the rear seats, lighten it up, the whole nine with that. The problem is that I don't have that money just lying around. I think it would be a cool build, but it's not like a build I would want passionately. Like if I'm going to get a pissed off high revving 350-ish horsepower NA motor build, I would want to put it in like a 510, or I've been actually really thinking about like classic MGB coupes recently. Dad always wanted one. And I think that would be kind of a cool project. But that being said, I've said this a million times on this stream, and with cars, you love what you love. You're into. So, Andrew, I think it's awesome that you love that S80. I think it's awesome that Doug loves stuff that competed with horses for transportation. I love, the Grand Nationals. I love all this other sort of stuff. I love the fact that people are passionate about cars because, like we said earlier in the stream, automotive enthusiasm is waning. It's a dying breed. And everyone, regardless of if you're driving, I don't know, if you're into muscle cars, if you're into a Miata, if you're into weird stuff like Volvo and Saab, if you like JDM stuff, if you like European cars, like any of that sort of stuff, it may not be first on my list, but you should be encouraged to feel that way. You should be encouraged to say, hey, I love this car, and that be awesome. And feel free to make it your own. Modify it. Like, Andrew, don't even sweat it, brother. Like, again, I get it. Greg's the Volvoist of this group. I think, let me put it to you this way. There's not many Volvos Greg doesn't like. I just think at the stage of the life he's in, having a warranty and having, a modern-ish car is paramount because, let's face it, I give him crap all the time, but dude's a father. So being able to get your kids and all that other sort of stuff is huge. Doug goes, I didn't buy the S60 new. You have newer vehicles. I saw farm equipment and old stuff at your house. I must have missed something. Antoine goes, do you like the new Lotus Emira? I love anything that, let me put it this way. I believe the Emira, Let me just double check so I don't sound like an idiot on the internet. Bold strategy, I know. I believe the Emira is... Just let me pull that up real quick. Sure. Good job websiting, Lotus. Great work. What the heck? Exotic looks, enhanced comfort. Regardless of Lotus's own website being terrible, I love it. I think it looks beautiful, and I don't really care what's powering it. It's actually... See, Greg's going to disagree with me, but it's one of the first Lotuses to look of the era and not a few years late. Sure, stuff like the Elise was groundbreakingly different, but like the Evora, for example, I always thought that was a day late. It was a great car, mostly, but I always thought it was kind of a day late. Let's see here. Doug, I bought a 2010 Mustang GT new and a 2015 Fiesta new, both manuals. Normally I stick with $1,000 project cars, though. I mean, it's like, yeah, because if it sucks and you can't fix it, you're out $1,000. Seems like a reasonable thing to do. Andrew's big fan of Lexus. I love Lexus. I specifically... Big fan of the IS platform. I really would love to get my hands on like the F Sport Performance, basically the IS 500, and just drive that because I've always loved the idea of a V8 IS. Like the ISF, great car. The 2UR, we've talked about it many times. Is arguably the greatest V8 Japan has ever made. Great engine. That's another project that's kicked around in my head, like, right? Like, of the cars I used to have, which would I have and make a project? It would probably be another first gen IS 300. This time with a 1UR or 1UZ in the front, and see if I can get NA 500 horsepower. I mean, I also love the idea of Coyote swapping one, but Coyotes are enormous. I mean, much to Doug's chagrin, an LS would be a much better fit and has been done. And here's the thing: if think the UZ swap is something, Chip Foose and Rod Millen did a IS 430 with a 3UZ back in the day. It was on Rides. And to this day, it was one of my favorite episodes of Rides. And there were some really cool cars on that show. And, 97, Lexuses were interesting in a time when Toyotas weren't, if that makes any sense. When the Supra left, Toyota didn't really have much in the way of exciting vehicles. They had, it was basically the Camry, and everything else looked like a slight variation of the Camry.
And we're back. It's just on me immediately. Are you still there or no?
Yeah, I'm here. I just like making things awkward for you.
That's okay. I'll make it awkward back. Unrelenting eye contact. This is our stream now. Hello. Hello. And everyone's left. Did you talk about the SC300?
No, but I love that.
I hate it.
It's basically luxury Supra. Oh, shoot. I gotta might not be able to. Never mind, as you were. I love the fact that it's a luxury Supra, like, and that it came with a V8, the good V8. And
Oh God. Extra hello. Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Eyes.
I like the SC300s, but not in stock trims. So, like, stock, they look goofy. But when you put a good body kit on them and stuff, I think they start to look better. And then, like I said, like, you could get a 1UZ in them. And I think that's cool. I would also love to get my hands on one. And then get my hands on, like, an NA Supra. Swap out the subframes. And do a V8 Supra just to annoy people. That's actually, I got to be 100% honest, that's one of...
Go ahead.
That's actually one of the... That's in my, like, top 3 builds I want to do. That or, and because not only would it annoy Doug, but it would annoy Supra purists everywhere. I would love to put an American V8 in one.
Oh, that would be great. It would literally piss off everyone in JDM.
Yes. But, oh man, and then then there's the top secret V12 Supra that's insane, that I love. Like,
yeah, that thing's crazy.
It's crazy. As someone who was a full-fledged 100% Jay-Z-ophile, and I don't mean the rapper, I mean the 1 and 2J, I got over those motors so fast, like way faster than I ever thought I would. And like to the point now where it's like, okay, yay, they're way over engineered, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there.
So, oh man.
Anyway, I think it's time to call it because I got 2 hours of work to do and it's almost 11.
Yes.
Great.
So,
can't wait.
On that note, everyone wish Greg luck on his pursuit at maintaining a job. We'll catch you next week. Again, just a reminder, if you're looking to make a road trip out to Northwest New Jersey, Island Dragway. I'll post again in like the supporters thing. Boring and boring together. If you guys want to come out, support Greg. If Greg did make a promise that he'd run up and down pit lane shirtless if he got into the 12s. So if you want to come see that. Or he won't
no such promise was made.
Or he won't do that if you guys show up and hang out. So, but like I said, Stang probably won't be running. But it will.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to come out to that, shoot us a message in the group. Just let us know.
And if we don't go, because the whole reason we're going is for me and my car. If for some reason my work blows up, I will let you guys know, or one of us will let you know in the supporter group before we go. So as of right now, it's a yes, until you hear otherwise.
Absolutely. So thanks again, guys, for watching. We will see you